I always believed I had a close relationship with my daughter, Maya. She was my only child, my miracle baby, the one I thought God sent to balance all the storms I had to weather in my younger years. So when I say that Maya and I talked about everything, I mean everything. Or at least, that's what I thought. That illusion broke on a quiet Tuesday afternoon when I walked into my own kitchen and heard two voices that stopped me at the doorway, Maya's and my sister Karen's. They were whispering, the kind of whispering people do when they don't want you to hear something. I froze, hidden just out of sight, my hands still on the light switch. "I haven't told Mama yet," Maya said, her voice low, shaky. Karen sighed. "You can't hide this forever, baby. She's gonna find out." I know, Maya whispered, but I'm not ready for her reaction." Those words hit me harder than they should have. Since when was Maya afraid of my reaction? Since when did she keep secrets from me? I stepped back quietly before either of them noticed me, my heart beating too loudly in my chest. I didn't confront them, not then. Something in the tone of Maya's voice told me this wasn't the moment. I went upstairs, closed my bedroom door, and just sat on the edge of my bed, feeling colder than that October wind blowing outside. At first, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. College stress, a job interview, maybe a bad decision she was ashamed of. But deep down, something darker twisted in my gut. A mother knows when a secret is too heavy for casual conversation. The shift started long before that day, now that I think about it. For the past 3 months, Maya had been distant, not rude, not dismissive, just reserved, too quiet. She'd step outside to take phone calls. She'd delete messages before I even had a chance to ask who texted her. She'd go out, dress nicely, come home late, and give me vague answers like just dinner with a friend or a group project meeting. But I didn't push. I thought giving her space was the right thing to do. I thought trust meant not prying. Now, looking back, I can see that silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes silence is a warning. That night, after overhearing her conversation, I stood in the hallway listening for clues, something, anything, but nothing else was said. They changed the subject by the time I went back downstairs, and everything looked normal, too normal. Maya hugged me and kissed my cheek like she always did, but I felt something new, distance. 2 days later, I learned the truth by accident. I was looking for Maya in her room to ask if she needed anything from the grocery store. Her phone buzzed on the desk, lighting up with a notification. I didn't mean to look, I really didn't, but when a message flashes bright as daylight in front of you, sometimes your eyes move before your mind catches up. It read, "Can't wait to see you tonight, Mrs. Walker." Mrs. Walker? My daughter's last name wasn't Walker, and I knew no one who would call her Mrs. anything. My heart dropped into my stomach. I stared at the message again, my mouth going dry. Was my daughter married? Married without telling me? The front door opened downstairs. Footsteps. Maya's voice. I stepped away from the desk so quickly I nearly knocked over the chair. When she came into the room, she smiled at me like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't just been called Mrs. Walker by someone who clearly felt comfortable enough to say it. "Mama, you okay?" she asked. I swallowed hard. "I'm fine, baby, just checking in." Her smile faltered for a second, a flicker, a hesitation. She knew I sensed something. But instead of telling me the truth, she brushed past me and tossed her bag on the bed. "Long day?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. "Yeah, just tired," she said, kicking off her shoes. Every answer was a wall. Every sigh felt like a lock turning. Later that night, I replayed that message in my mind until the words carved themselves into the darkness. Mrs. Walker. I didn't sleep. My chest felt too tight, my mind too restless. By morning, the confusion had simmered into something sharper: hurt, anxiety, betrayal. Around noon, I decided I needed to know the truth, not because I wanted to scold her or control her life. I just needed to understand what had come between us so deeply that she would hide something as big as marriage. I prayed, truly prayed, that I was overreacting. I wasn't. I went into Maya's closet to grab a jacket she borrowed from me, thinking maybe a small talk would help break through the ice between us. But as I pulled her laundry basket aside, something on the floor caught my eye. A small gold band, simple, thin, worn enough to tell it had been on a finger for more than one day. I picked it up slowly. My knees weakened. The room spun. My daughter was married without a word to me. And the question that haunted me most wasn't when she got married. It was why she hid him from me. A truth that would turn my whole world upside down. I didn't confront Maya right away. I wish I could say it was because I was being calm or wise or patient, but the truth is simpler than that. I was scared. Scared of the truth she might tell me. Scared of the distance already growing between us. Scared that whatever she was hiding would change our relationship forever. That little gold band felt heavier than any ring I'd ever worn. I set it on my dresser and just stared at it, my mind running in tight, painful circles. Why did my daughter feel the need to hide a husband from me? What kind of marriage needed that kind of secrecy? And what kind of man wanted to marry my child without meeting her family? When Maya came home that evening, I sat in the living room pretending to watch a church broadcast, my stomach twisted with every footstep she took. She walked in, dropped her keys in the bowl by the door, and gave me the same soft, "Hey, Mama," she always did. But suddenly, I heard all the space between that greeting and the truth she wasn't saying. She sat on the couch across from me, scrolling on her phone with a nervous energy that didn't match her face. I studied her carefully, the way her fingers trembled slightly, the way she kept glancing at the stairs like she wanted to escape to her room. She was hiding something big, and it was eating at her, just like it was eating at me. "Baby," I began gently, "you seem tired lately. Everything okay?" She froze for half a second, then she nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just a lot going on." "School?" I asked. "Mm-hmm." "Work?" "Mm-hmm." Her answers were short, clipped the way people answer when they're closing a door. I let the silence settle around us. Maya hated silence. When she was younger, she would fill quiet moments with humming or tapping or rambling about her day. But now she just sat there, staring down at her phone like it held the whole world. I took a slow breath. "Anything you want to talk about?" She shook her head. "Not right now. Not with me. Not anymore." Later that night, when she fell asleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table with a cup of cold tea and a stack of old photo albums. I kept flipping through Maya's pictures, her first day of kindergarten, her school dance, her graduation, with one ache in my chest. Where did I lose her? Around midnight, I made a decision. If Maya wouldn't tell me the truth, I needed to find it on my own. Not to control her, not to punish her, but because a mother can't protect a child she doesn't understand. So the next morning, I drove to the one person who always saw through Maya's silences, my sister Karen. When she opened the door, her face softened like she'd been expecting me. "You look tired, sis," she said, pulling me into a hug. "I haven't slept," I admitted. Her expression changed instantly. "Come in." We sat at her kitchen table, the same place I'd overheard her whispering to Maya days earlier. This time, I didn't beat around the bush. "What's going on with my child?" I asked quietly. "And don't tell me you don't know." Karen looked down at her mug. Her shoulders sagged. "I tried to stay out of it, But Maya came to me months ago, confused, scared, and trying to figure things out. She begged me not to tell you until she was ready. Tell me what? My voice cracked despite me trying to hold it steady. She didn't want you to judge her. Judge her? About what? Karen rubbed her hands together. She met someone. It moved fast, too fast, and she wasn't sure how you'd react because of his age. My stomach clenched. His age? She said she didn't want you thinking she was being taken advantage of. I felt the room shift beneath me. How old is this man? Karen's eyes flicked up to mine with an apology already forming in them. He's 39. The words slammed into me like a punch. 39! Maya was 23. I pushed back from the table, my breath unsteady. And you knew? I whispered. You knew my baby was seeing a man nearly twice her age, and you didn't say a word? Karen reached toward me, but I pulled back. I couldn't break her trust, she said softly. She wanted you to tell herself. My chest tightened. But she didn't. No, Karen admitted, because the situation changed. A sick feeling rolled through me. What situation? Karen took a long, shaky breath. They got married, sis. Hearing the words spoken out loud, spoken clearly without hesitation, felt like someone dragged air out of my lungs. But that's not the part she's scared to tell you, Karen continued quietly. The part she's afraid of is who he is. My pulse hammered in my ears. Who is he? I whispered. Karen looked me dead in the eye, and her voice dropped to a grave softness. He's someone from your past. My mouth went dry. From my past? I don't know any 39-year-old men who would have... Yes, you do, she said, cutting me off. You just don't know it yet. I stared at her, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear the refrigerator behind us. Tell me his name, I said. Karen exhaled and gently placed her hand over mine. Maya's husband is connected to the one man you hoped would never reappear in your life. I felt my entire body go cold. Who man? I whispered, terrified of the answer. Karen swallowed hard. Darius Holloway. I stopped breathing. The name hit me like thunder, violent, sharp, impossible to ignore. Darius Holloway. A man I hadn't spoken of in over 20 years. A name I buried because the truth behind it was too painful to carry. My daughter, married to someone tied to him. My world tilted, not slowly, not gently, violently. I gripped the edge of the table, fighting the urge to collapse. Karen watched me, helpless. Maya doesn't know everything, she whispered. She doesn't know who he truly is. But I did, or at least I knew enough to understand one thing. Whatever connection existed between my daughter's husband and Darius Holloway, it wasn't good, and it wasn't safe. I don't remember the drive home. I didn't remember backing out of Karen's driveway or the traffic lights or the stop signs along the way. All I remembered was the echo of that name, the one I promised myself I would never speak again. Darius Holloway. Just thinking it made my hand shake on the steering wheel. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I sat in the car for a long time, my forehead pressed against the leather, trying to steady my breathing. The memories came rushing back too fast, too sharp, too real. I hadn't thought about Darius in years, decades even. I built a whole life around forgetting him. But now I understood why Maya hid the truth. She didn't know who she had gotten involved with. She didn't know the danger. And somehow, some way, she ended up marrying a man tied to that dark chapter of my life. I walked into the house in a daze. The quiet felt suffocating. Every sound, the floor creaking under my feet, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint tapping of branches against the window, felt louder than it should have been. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same place where Maya and I shared breakfast every Sunday morning, the same place where she used to chatter about her dreams and her friends and her plans for the future. Now, all I could think about was how much of that future I didn't know anymore, how much of her life had drifted away from me without warning. An hour passed, maybe 2. I don't know. I felt frozen, trapped between past and present, trying to make sense of what was happening. When Maya came home later that evening, I could hear her light footsteps in the hallway. She walked into the kitchen with the same easy smile she always wore around me. "Hey, Mama," she said, leaning down to kiss my cheek. But when she pulled back, she stopped. Her smile faded slightly. She could see something in my face. "You okay?" she asked. I studied her, my beautiful child, the one I raised alone, the one I tried to protect from every storm that had ever touched my life. "Maya," I said quietly, "we need to talk." She hesitated. Her eyes darted toward the stairs again, like she was deciding whether to run or sit. After a moment, she pulled out the chair across from me. "What's going on?" she asked, though the tremor in her voice told me she already knew. I took a slow breath. "I know you're married." Her entire body stiffened, as if the truth itself had slapped her across the face. "Mama, I'm not angry," I said gently, though the hurt was still raw. "I'm confused. I'm scared, but I'm not angry." She swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "I wanted to tell you, Mama. I really did. I just didn't know how." "Why? Why hide something so big from me?" She looked down at her hands. "Because I knew you wouldn't approve." My chest tightened. "Baby, I may not approve of everything you do, but I've never turned my back on you." "I know," she said, voice cracking, "but this is different." "Is it because of his age?" The way she flinched told me that wasn't the only reason, but it was definitely part of it. "Maya," I continued softly, "you're 23, he's 39. That's a gap that raises serious concerns." "You don't know him," she shot back. "You don't know what kind of person he is." "No, I don't, and that's part of the problem. You married a man I've never met, a man you've barely told me anything about." She exhaled shakily. "I didn't want to be judged." "By who?" I asked gently. "Me or yourself?" Her eyes filled with tears, but before I could press further, she straightened up and wiped her face quickly. "His name is Aaron Walker." My heart stopped. Walker, the same last name from the text message, the same name Karen refused to say. I nodded slowly. "And how is he connected to Darius Holloway?" Maya blinked. "Who?" she asked, confusion crossing her face. She didn't know. Karen was right. She didn't know the truth. "Don't lie to me," I whispered. "I'm not lying," Maya insisted, her voice cracking. "Mama, I don't even know who that is. I've never heard that name a day in my life." My breath caught. She truly didn't know, which meant Aaron didn't tell her, which meant the connection wasn't an accident, which meant someone in this equation is hiding something, and it wasn't my daughter. "Maya," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "how long have you known Aaron?" 8 months. We met at a volunteer event. He was kind, thoughtful, patient. He made me feel safe. Safe. A man tied to Darius could never make anyone safe. "And when did you get married?" 3 months ago. 3 months ago. Right around the time she started acting secretive, right around the time she changed her routines, right around the time she started coming home late, avoiding conversations, and deleting messages. My heart sank deeper. And you never thought to tell me? She looked at me, eyes full of shame and longing. I couldn't, Mama. Aaron said... She stopped suddenly. Her face changed. The blood drained from her cheeks. Aaron said what? I pushed gently. Baby, what did he tell you? Her eyes filled again, not with sadness this time, but with fear. Mama, he told me it was better if you didn't know him yet. I felt my pulse spike. And why is that? She hesitated long enough for my breath to turn shallow. Because he said your past would make things complicated. I felt the air leave my lungs. That confirmed it. Aaron knew who I was. He knew what happened with Darius. He knew the truth Maya didn't. But Maya, my sweet, trusting child, had no idea she married a man with a hidden agenda. Mama, she whispered, what does he know about your past that I don't? I looked at her, at the fear growing in her eyes, at the innocence slipping away by the second. This was the moment I had been trying to avoid for 23 years. The moment I would have to tell my daughter the truth about the darkest time in my life. The man I feared, the danger I escaped, the secret I buried. Maya, I said quietly, you need to sit down. Her lip trembled. Why? She whispered. Because the man you married is connected to the reason I ran away from everything I once knew. Mama, what do you mean you ran away? Maya's voice was small, almost a child's voice. It broke something inside me to hear it like that. I gestured toward the chair across from me again. Please, baby, sit. She lowered herself slowly, as if her legs might give out beneath her. Her hands shook when she placed them on the table. I took a breath I had been holding for more than 2 decades. There are things about my past I never told you, I began, my voice barely above a whisper. Things I hoped would never touch your life. Things I prayed you'd never have to know. Maya swallowed, hard. Mama, you're scaring me. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to protect you, the same way I always have. She nodded slowly, tears threatening again. Who is Darius Holloway? She asked. The name stabbed through me. He was someone I knew when I was much younger, someone I should have never trusted, someone who almost destroyed my life. Maya blinked, stunned. Was he someone you dated? I shook my head sharply. No, not like that. And I thanked God it wasn't that kind of history, but it was still a kind that could do damage. It wasn't a relationship, I continued. It was a trap, one I walked into thinking I was helping someone. Maya waited, silent, tense. I was 19, I said, working 2 jobs, trying to keep myself afloat. One day I met a boy, your Uncle John's friend. He told me Darius needed help. He made it sound harmless. Someone just needing a ride, a favor, a moment of my time. I paused. My throat tightened. But nothing about Darius was harmless. Maya leaned forward. What did he do to you? I looked her dead in the eyes. He used me, Maya. He used me to cover his tracks. He involved me in something illegal, something I had no idea I was stepping into. And when I realized what he was doing, I tried to get out. And, she whispered, and he wouldn't let me. Men like Darius don't let people walk away. They don't forgive disobedience. They don't forgive anything. Maya pressed a hand to her chest. Mama. One night, I continued, the old memory clawing its way to the surface. One night I heard him talking with someone. I heard what he planned to do. I heard what he thought of me, and I knew if I didn't leave then, right then, I wouldn't survive long enough to tell anyone. Maya covered her mouth. So I ran. At dawn, with nothing but a bag of clothes and the little cash I'd saved, I changed my number, I left the city, I hid. I never looked back. Maya shook her head. Why didn't you go to the police? I tried, I said quietly. They weren't interested in the testimony of a scared teenage girl with no proof. And Darius had influence, connections. He wasn't some petty criminal. He was smart. He was patient. He was dangerous. I could still feel the fear from that time in my bones. But, Mama, she said softly, that was decades ago. Some men, I whispered, don't let go of grudges, and some men don't disappear. Maya's eyes widened. Are you saying he's still out there? I don't know, I admitted. That's what scares me. And if your husband has any connection to him, even a distant one, then we have a problem. She sat back in her chair, stunned, breath shaking. Mama, Aaron isn't like that. He's gentle. He's respectful. He treats me well. He's nothing like the man you're describing. I hear you gently. But kindness doesn't erase blood ties. Connections are connections. And if he comes from a family tied to Darius, you need to know. But I don't think Aaron knows anything about this, she said, voice trembling. He would have told me. Would he? I asked softly. When he already asked you to hide your marriage from me. She froze. That hit her. Hard. Maya, I said carefully, you need to understand something. Even if Aaron is a good man, he may be connected to bad people, and those people may want something from him or from you. Her breath came faster. No, no, Mama, I don't want this. I don't want you to say these things. I don't want to believe. This isn't about what you want, I said, my voice firm but gentle. It's about what's real. She looked down at the table, and when she lifted her gaze again, fear had taken root in her eyes. What do we do? She whispered. What am I supposed to do? You're not doing anything alone. Not now, not ever. I will not let you walk blind into something dangerous. Maya wiped at her tears. Mama, what if you're wrong? I stared at her, my heart twisting. And what if I'm right? Silence. She looked toward the stairs, toward her room, toward the place where she kept a life I barely knew anymore. I need to talk to Aaron. I need answers. No, I said quickly, too quickly. She froze. That hit her. Hard. Maya, I said carefully, you need to understand something. Even if Aaron is a good man, he may be connected to bad people, and those people may want something from him or from you. Her breath came faster. No, no, Mama, I don't want this. I don't want you to say these things. I don't want to believe. This isn't about what you want, I said, my voice firm but gentle. It's about what's real. She looked down at the table, and when she lifted her gaze again, fear had taken root in her eyes. What do we do? She whispered. What am I supposed to do? You're not doing anything alone. Not now, not ever. I will not let you walk blind into something dangerous. Maya wiped at her tears. Mama, what if you're wrong? I stared at her, my heart twisting. And what if I'm right? Silence. She looked toward the stairs, toward her room, toward the place where she kept a life I barely knew anymore. I need to talk to Aaron. I need answers. No, I said quickly, too quickly. She froze. That hit her. Hard. Maya, I said carefully, you need to understand something. Even if Aaron is a good man, he may be connected to bad people, and those people may want something from him or from you. Her breath came faster. No, no, Mama, I don't want this. I don't want you to say these things. I don't want to believe. This isn't about what you want, I said, my voice firm but gentle. It's about what's real. She looked down at the table, and when she lifted her gaze again, fear had taken root in her eyes. What do we do? She whispered. What am I supposed to do? You're not doing anything alone. Not now, not ever. I will not let you walk blind into something dangerous. Maya wiped at her tears. Mama, what if you're wrong? I stared at her, my heart twisting. And what if I'm right? Silence. She looked toward the stairs, toward her room, toward the place where she kept a life I barely knew anymore. I need to talk to Aaron. I need answers. No, I said quickly, too quickly. She froze. That hit her. Hard. Maya, I said carefully, you need to understand something. Even if Aaron is a good man, he may be connected to bad people, and those people may want something from him or from you. Her breath came faster. No, no, Mama, I don't want this. I don't want you to say these things. I don't want to believe. This isn't about what you want, I said, my voice firm but gentle. It's about what's real. She looked down at the table, and when she lifted her gaze again, fear had taken root in her eyes. What do we do? She whispered. What am I supposed to do? You're not doing anything alone. Not now, not ever. I will not let you walk blind into something dangerous. Maya wiped at her tears. Mama, what if you're wrong? I stared at her, my heart twisting. And what if I'm right? Silence. She looked toward the stairs, toward her room, toward the place where she kept a life I barely knew anymore. I need to talk to Aaron. I need answers. No, I said quickly, too quickly. She froze. That hit her. Hard. Maya, I said carefully, you need to understand something. Even if Aaron is a good man, he may be connected to bad people, and those people may want something from him or from you. Her breath came faster. No, no, Mama, I don't want this. I don't want you to say these things. Maya didn't sleep that night. I could tell by the way her bedroom light glowed under the door until dawn. Every few hours, I heard her pacing the floor, light steps, then heavy breaths, then the sound of her sitting on the edge of her bed like she was praying for strength. I didn't sleep either. By sunrise, the air in the house felt tight, like the whole place was holding its breath with us. I was in the kitchen brewing coffee when Maya walked in. She looked exhausted, eyes swollen, her hair loosely tied back, sweater hanging off one shoulder. Mama, she whispered, as if her voice belonged to someone else. I don't want to wait anymore. I turned slowly. What do you mean? I need answers, she said. I can't go through another day like yesterday. I need to know who I married. Her words sliced through my chest. I pulled out a chair. Sit, baby. She didn't. She leaned against the counter, arms folded tightly across her chest, trying to hold herself together. I've been thinking, she said. We can't stay in the dark, and if Aaron won't tell me, then we need to find another way. I nodded cautiously. There was a line between courage and danger, and I prayed she wouldn't cross it too fast. What do you have in mind? I asked. She hesitated. I want to check his background. I raised my eyebrows. You mean go through his things? No, she said firmly. I mean official records, public records. I want to know the truth about his family, about where he comes from, about Darius Holloway. I studied her. This wasn't the same girl who married in secret. This was a woman who suddenly realized she needed to protect her own life. "All right," I said, "but we need to be smart, quiet, careful." "I know," she replied. "And we don't talk to Aaron until we have all the information." She nodded. I poured her a cup of coffee. She took it with shaky hands. "We'll start small," I said, setting my own cup down. "Birth records, marriage license details, addresses, family history, anything we can find without raising flags." Maya took a sip, stared at the floor, then whispered, "Why would he hide his family from me, Mama? Why didn't he tell me who he's connected to?" I placed a hand over hers. Because I already knew the answer, but she needed to walk toward it herself. "Sometimes," I said softly, "people don't tell the truth because they're afraid of losing what they have." She exhaled shakily. "But hiding something that big? That's not fear, that's deception." I didn't argue. She sank into the chair finally, coffee untouched, head in her hands. "What if I married the wrong man?" she whispered. That question, it broke something inside me, because I had asked myself the same thing once, many years ago, before I ran for my life. "We don't know that yet," I said, "not until we see facts." She sat up, wiped her cheeks. "Okay, then let's look." I nodded and rose from the table. "I'll grab my laptop." She followed me to the living room. I settled on the couch, Maya perched beside me, her knee bouncing nervously as I opened the computer. "All right," I murmured, typing. "Let's start with his full name." "Aaron James Holloway," she said quietly. That last name sent a cold wave through me. Holloway. Even after 25 years, it felt like someone dragged a blade across old scar tissue. I typed it in slow, careful strokes. We searched public databases, old addresses, marriage records, family connections. At first, it looked clean, nothing alarming, nothing criminal, nothing out of place. But then I clicked on a record I almost missed, a faint line buried under an older listing. It showed a connection, a direct one. My chest tightened. Maya leaned closer. "Mama, what is that? What does it say?" I zoomed in. There it was, in black and white, undeniable, unavoidable, a shared household address from 20 years ago, belonging to Aaron and a man named Darius Holloway. Maya covered her mouth, her breath catching. "No, no, Mama, that has to be a mistake." "I wish it was." She shook her head violently. "Aaron never told me he lived with someone by that name. He said he grew up alone. He said he didn't have anyone." "People lie about family," I said quietly, "especially family they don't want to be associated with." Her breathing quickened, her eyes filled with panic. "Mama, what if he married me for a reason? What if he's using me?" I took her hand. "Calm down. We don't know that yet." "But why lie?" she cried. "Why hide something that big? Why ask me to keep our marriage secret from you? Why—" She broke down, tears spilling fast. I held her, tight, the way I used to when she had nightmares as a child. After a long moment, she pulled back, wiping her face with trembling fingers. "I need to confront him," she said. "I need to ask him the truth." "No," I repeated firmly, "not yet." "Mama, I can't sit here another day pretending." "We confront him when we have more than a single record, when we have more proof, more clarity. Once you show your hand, you can't take it back." She stared at me, unsure, scared, shaking. "Then what do we do now?" she whispered. I looked at the screen, then back at her. We learn more about this address, about who else lived there, about when Aaron left, why he left, and what happened inside those walls. "And if we don't like what we find?" she asked weakly. I exhaled, feeling a storm rise inside me. "Then I'll do what I should have done 25 years ago." She frowned. "What's that?" I closed the laptop slowly. Face the past I ran from. The room went still, because for the first time I realized something terrifying. If Darius Holloway was alive, he might already know where I am and who my daughter is. I didn't want to leave the house that morning, not with fear sitting heavy on my chest like wet clay, but I knew if we didn't move, fear would paralyze us completely. Maya sat across from me, still pale and shaken, twisting the sleeve of her sweater around her fingers. "Mama," she whispered, "what if we find something worse? What if the truth is uglier than we think?" "Then we deal with it," I said, "one step at a time." I grabbed my keys, my purse, and the old folder I kept tucked behind the bookshelf, one I hadn't opened in over 20 years. The edges were worn, the papers brittle, but it contained every scrap of information I collected the day I fled. Maya eyed it nervously. "I've never seen that before." "You weren't supposed to," I said softly. We stood in the doorway, the morning sun pouring across the beige carpet like a spotlight on our fear. "Where are we going?" she asked. "The courthouse," I said. "Records office. That's where answers live." She nodded, swallowing hard. We walked outside. The sky was overcast, the clouds low and gray, mirroring the storm building inside both of us. Maya slid into the passenger seat, hugging her arms as though she was holding herself together. The drive was silent, except for her shaky breaths and the tapping of my fingers against the steering wheel. Not from impatience, just nerves. Old nerves, the kind I thought I buried decades ago. When we arrived, the courthouse foyer smelt like old carpet and copy toner. People moved through the halls with stacks of paperwork, nodding quietly to clerks as they passed. Maya stayed close to me like she used to when she was little and afraid of crowds. At the records desk, a woman with glasses perched low on her nose greeted us. "Good morning. Research or retrieval?" "Research," I answered. "Name?" she asked. I hesitated, just for a moment. Then I said it, letting the poison roll off my tongue. "Darius Holloway." Her eyebrows lifted slightly, but she typed. "And second name?" she asked. I glanced at Maya. "Aaron James Holloway." Her fingers froze over the keyboard. She clicked a few times, frowned, clicked again. "There's restricted access attached to one of these names," she murmured. "You'll need to fill out a request form." "Which one?" Maya asked, voice trembling. She looked at us over the rim of her glasses. "Darius." My breath caught. "Restricted?" Maya whispered. The woman nodded. "Yes, some records only open through special clearance." I felt Maya's hand tighten around my arm. "Is that normal?" she asked. "For dangerous people," the clerk said casually, not understanding the weight her words carried. Dangerous. That word shivered down my spine. I cleared my throat. "What about Aaron? Are his records accessible?" She turned back to the computer. "Yes, his are open." I exhaled slowly. "Print everything you have," I said. She nodded and walked to the printer. Maya leaned close. "Mama, why would Darius have restricted records?" "Because he didn't just break laws, baby," I said quietly. "He destroyed lives." Before she could respond, the clerk returned with 2 thin sheets of paper. Too thin, too little information. I frowned. "Is that all?" She shrugged. "That's everything on him from this jurisdiction." We stepped aside, reading the printouts together, but my heart stopped the moment I saw it. A single line, a single date, a single stamp. Released 18 months ago. My lungs emptied. Maya stared at it, her mouth falling open. "Mama, he was in prison?" "Yes," I whispered, barely able to speak. "And he's out?" I nodded. She clutched my arm tighter. "But does Aaron know? Does he know his family?" I shook my head. "We don't know anything yet." But my heart knew. Deep down, I felt the truth snapping into place. If Darius was out, if he left prison only a year and a half ago, and if Aaron lived with him years back, then this wasn't coincidence. It wasn't random. It wasn't harmless. This was orchestrated, calculated, and possibly connected to me. I stepped back, trying to breathe, when someone bumped my shoulder. "Oh, sorry," a man mumbled as he walked past. He didn't look at me, didn't slow down, didn't seem threatening. But Maya grabbed my hand suddenly. "Mama, look!" She pointed to the floor, where the man had dropped something, a folded flyer. I picked it up. It was a card for a community reentry support program, a list of names printed at the bottom, people who had been through the program, and my blood ran cold, because one of those names was Aaron J. Holloway. My knees weakened. "Mama," Maya whispered, her voice cracking. "He lied to you," I said. My words tasted bitter. "He lied about everything." Maya pressed her mouth to her hand, tears spilling instantly. No, Mama, this can't be happening. He told me he never had trouble with the law. He told me—" "He lied again," I said more firmly, "and he hid this because he didn't want you to know who he really was." Maya sank into one of the courthouse benches, shaking. I smoothed her hair back gently. "I know, baby." Her tears fell faster now. "But the man you love may not exist, and the truth is starting to show itself." She wiped her face roughly. "So what do we do now?" I looked down at the flyer again, at Aaron's name beside a list of men who had served time. "We find out what he was in for," I said, "and we find out how deep his ties run to Darius." Maya swallowed hard. "And if we find out the worst?" I met her eyes. "Then, baby, you're going to have to decide if your marriage is worth your life." Her breath caught. "But one thing's certain." "What?" she whispered. "If Darius is out, he's not far." Maya froze, and in that moment, the air in the courthouse felt colder, because for the first time in years, I felt like someone might be watching. We left the courthouse quietly, but both of us kept glancing over our shoulders. Nothing looked unusual, just people walking, cars passing, the normal rhythm of a weekday morning. But fear has a way of making the world feel tilted. Once we were back in the car, Maya sat stiffly, arms crossed, staring at the flyer with Aaron's name on it like it was a foreign language. "He never mentioned this," she whispered. "He never said anything about a program, about a record, about prison." "People hide things when shame is heavier than truth," I said. She shook her head. "But he made me believe he was an open book, sweet, honest, clean. He told me he'd never even gotten a parking ticket." "And you believed him," I said softly. "Of course I believed him, Mama," she snapped, then instantly looked guilty. "I'm sorry, I'm not angry at you. I'm just heartbroken," I finished for her. She nodded. "Baby," I said, "loving a man doesn't make you a fool, but refusing to see the truth does." She leaned her head back against the seat. "So what's the truth now?" I took a deep breath. "The truth," I said, "is that Aaron lied about something big, and big lies don't come from small problems." Maya wiped her eyes. "We need to know what he was in for. That'll tell us everything." "It's not going to be in public records," I reminded her. "We'll need details, dates, counties, charges, and we don't have enough yet." "So how do we find it?" she asked. I hesitated, because the answer I was about to give was one I never imagined saying again. "We talked to someone who would know." Maya blinked. "Who?" I gripped the steering wheel. "Your Uncle John." Her face went white. "Mama, you haven't talked to John in years." "I know." "And you said he was the one who introduced you to—" "I know." "And you said you'd never go near anything connected to that man again." "I know," I said firmly, "but this isn't about the past anymore. It's about you. And if Aaron's family is tied to Darius, then John might know what happened after I ran." Maya bit her lip. What if he doesn't want to help? What if he owes me, I said, and if he has any decency left, he'll tell us what he knows. She looked down. Do you know where he lives now? Yes. Have you checked on him? No, but I never forgot the address. She shifted nervously. Mama, I'm scared to meet him. You won't be alone. I'll handle the talking. You stay close. She nodded, though her hands shook. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. The drive was quiet, too quiet. Every red light felt longer than usual. Every car behind us felt suspicious. When we finally turned onto the old neighborhood street where my brother lived, I felt time bending. Houses looked smaller than I remembered, the trees older, the fences rusted and leaning. Maya scanned the street. This place feels sad. It wasn't always this way, but life doesn't treat everyone the same. We parked in front of a faded two-story duplex with peeling paint and a crooked mailbox. A half-broken porch light hung by a wire. I turned to Maya. If I tell you to get in the car, you get in immediately. No questions. She swallowed. Is it that serious? With people tied to Darius, everything is serious. We walked up the steps. I knocked twice, firm, not friendly. Footsteps shuffled inside. A lock clicked. Then the door opened. John looked older, much older. Gray stubble covered his jaw, his eyes sunken, his shoulders heavy, as if life had used him up slowly. But the moment he saw me, his body jerked like he'd seen a ghost. Latrice? He whispered. That was my name 25 years ago. That's the name I left behind. He looked past me and froze again when he saw Maya. This her? He asked quietly. I nodded. He exhaled shakily. Lord, she's grown. Maya looked at him cautiously. Hello? He stepped back. Come in. No, I said. We're fine here. He smirked weakly. Still don't trust me. You're right, I don't. He sighed and rubbed his face. What do you want, Latrice? I need information about Darius Holloway. His eyes snapped up, shocked, scared, angry, all at once. Why are you saying that man's name? Because my daughter married into his family, and I need to know what I'm dealing with. John stared at me for a long moment. Then he stepped onto the porch and pulled the door closed behind him. Is he out? Yes. He cursed under his breath. I told you running wouldn't keep him gone forever. I didn't come for your opinions. I came for the truth. John rubbed the back of his neck. What do you want to know? I need to know what Aaron was involved in, what ties he has, how dangerous this is. John sighed deeply. Aaron's his nephew. Maya gasped. I clenched my jaw. Nephew? I repeated. Yes. How involved? John's eyes dropped to the porch floor. Too involved, he whispered. Maya shook her head, tears filling her eyes again. But Aaron was in a re-entry program. Does that mean he... Yes, John said. He did time. Not long, but long enough. For what? I demanded. John looked up slowly. For helping Darius with something he should have stayed away from. My chest tightened. Murder? I asked. Drugs? Trafficking? He shook his head. No, something worse in a way. What? Maya cried. John met my eyes directly. Information, he said. I blinked. What do you mean? He ran communications for Darius, contacts, accounts, messages. He handled the one thing Darius always needed, information on people, their families, their weaknesses. My blood ran cold. And if your daughter married him, John said quietly, looking straight at Maya, then Darius knows exactly who she is. Maya let out a sharp breath, half sob, half scream. I pulled her close. John stepped back. I'm sorry, but if Aaron married her, it wasn't for love. It was for access. My heart shattered. Maya collapsed into my arms, and as I held her tightly against me, one thought screamed in my mind. He wasn't after my daughter. He was after me, and he had found his way in. A few days later, the house settled into that late evening quiet only old homes know. The kind where the walls seem to breathe and the floorboards hum with memory. I was sitting at the kitchen table, folding laundry, when I heard the softest knock on the back door. Not the front, the back, like someone didn't want the world to know they'd come. When I opened it, there stood Mr. Henson, our elderly neighbor from across the field. His shoulders looked heavier than usual, like he was carrying something he hadn't planned to speak about. He held his hat in both hands, twisting it nervously. Auntie May, you got a minute? I invited him in, set out 2 cups of herbal tea, and waited. Years have taught me that you don't rush a person whose soul is limping. Finally, he sighed, long and trembling. I seen that boy of yours, Damon, down by the creek last night. My heart stuttered. Damon had been staying out later than I liked, but I figured he needed space to think. Losing his temper earlier in the week had shaken him more than he let on. What happened? I asked, steadying my voice. Mr. Henson shook his head. Nothing bad, just he was sitting on that old tree stump crying so hard I felt it in my bones. I called his name, but he didn't hear me, or maybe he didn't want to. A slow ache opened behind my ribs. That boy carried silence like other people carried backpacks. I didn't want to intrude, Mr. Henson continued, but I figured you ought to know. I thanked him, but after he left, I couldn't sit still. I grabbed my shawl and walked to the creek, moonlight guiding the way. The air was cool, brushing against my cheeks like a whispered warning. When I reached the stump, the ground around it was still damp from tears. I touched the bark and felt the sadness left there like a residue. Lord, I breathed, help me reach that child. When I returned home, Damon's bedroom light was on. I knocked gently. Yeah? His voice came out rough, worn. I opened the door and saw him sitting on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. His shoulders were shaking, but he tried to hide it. I sat beside him without a word. Minutes passed. Finally, he whispered, I don't know what's wrong with me, Auntie. My heart broke clean. There ain't nothing wrong with you. You're grieving parts of your life you ain't had a chance to understand yet. That's a heavy thing for a young man. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. I feel like I ain't enough for nobody. Not for school, not for work, not even for you. I turned to him firmly. Now you listen to me, Damon. You are enough because you are breathing, because you are trying, because you get up every day and walk into a world that ain't made it easy for you, and because you are mine. Whether life wrote that in blood or not don't matter. He didn't look at me right away, but when he did, his eyes were glassy and stunned like nobody had ever told him he was enough before. Then, for the first time in months, he leaned into me, not like a boy, not like a burden, like someone finally letting themselves be held. I wrapped my arms around him and whispered, You ain't alone, you hear me? Not ever. His voice cracked. Okay. And in that moment, that fragile breaking open moment, I knew something inside him had shifted, not healed, not yet, but softened, enough for the light to get in. Over the next few weeks, the house seemed to breathe easier. Damon still moved quietly, still carried shadows under his eyes, but there was a steadiness to him now, a way he lingered a little longer at the table, a way he let his shoulders drop when he walked through the door. Healing never comes all at once. It arrives in fragments, little mercies scattered across ordinary days. One Saturday morning, I heard the soft rumble of his laughter from the living room, real laughter, the kind that escapes before a person can catch it. When I walked in, he was watching an old comedy on the television, one of those films his mama used to love. I didn't interrupt him. Sometimes joy is shy, and you have to let it approach you in its own time. Later that day, he knocked on my door. "Auntie, can I talk to you a minute?" His voice was steady, but his hands were fidgeting with the seam of his shirt. "Of course," I said, setting aside my reading. He sat across from me, rubbing his palms together. "I've been thinking. I want to try again, with school, with work, with everything. I need some guidance." There it was, the spark I'd been praying for. "Trying again doesn't mean you failed," I told him. "It means you're brave enough to grow." He nodded, eyes cast downward. "I don't want to be stuck anymore." "I won't let you be," I said. "We'll take it one step at a time." That evening, we sat at the kitchen table with a notepad between us. We talked about his goals, small ones at first. Wake up earlier, apply for that part-time job at the hardware store, finish his last set of classes. He seemed more alive, more certain with every word. "I don't need everything to change overnight," he said. "I just need to start." "And that," I replied, "is the hardest part." But as the days passed, a new tension began to grow in Damon. Subtle at first, the way he'd stare out the window a little too long, the way his jaw would clench when his phone buzzed, a heaviness like an old wound resurfacing. One night after dinner, he stepped outside to take a call. I didn't mean to listen, but his voice rose just enough. "I told you I'm not doing that anymore." A long silence. "No," I said, "no, I'm changing my life. I can't go back there." Another pause, then a sharp breath. "Don't call me again." He came back in looking shaken, like he'd just walked away from a fire and left part of himself in the smoke. I didn't press him, not yet, but I felt it, the past clawing at him, trying to drag him back. When he went to bed, I stood by the back door, staring out into the night. The wind rustled through the trees, and a sense of warning crept through me. Something or someone wasn't done with him, and I had a sinking feeling that whatever Damon had walked away from wasn't willing to let him go so easily. The next morning, Damon moved slower than usual. He sat at the table, staring into his coffee, letting the steam rise up into his face like he was trying to hide behind it. I watched him for a while before saying anything. Sometimes people talk easier when you give them a little space to settle. "You didn't sleep well?" I finally said. He didn't look up. "Not really." "You want to tell me why?" For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he sighed, long and heavy, like the truth was a weight he'd been dragging across miles. "Auntie, it's Kenny." The name hit the air like a sour note. I knew of him, not personally, but through the stories Damon had shared back when he first came to stay with me. Kenny was one of those friends who looked like support but felt like danger, the kind of boy who always had some opportunity that seemed just a little too good, a little too fast, a little too dark. "What did he want?" I asked. Damon rubbed the back of his neck. "He wants me to come back and help him with something. Says he needs me. Says I owe him." "Owe him how?" Damon swallowed. He covered for me once, back when things were bad, and he never lets me forget it." I leaned back in my chair. Damon, you don't owe anybody your future, not when they're trying to drag you backward. He nodded, but his eyes were troubled. That's what I told him, but he doesn't really hear no, you know? Yes, I knew exactly the type. Do you feel unsafe? I asked. He hesitated. I don't know, maybe. He's not the type to just let things go. My heart tightened. I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. Listen to me carefully. Whatever comes our way, you are not facing it alone. You live under my roof, and that means you pick up my strength, not just your own. His eyes glistened a little, not tears, but gratitude, the kind that slips in quietly, almost embarrassed to be seen. I don't want to ruin everything I'm trying to build, he whispered. You won't, not while I've still got breath in my body. That afternoon, while Damon went to fill out job applications, I stood in the kitchen washing dishes, thinking. My mind circled the same question again and again. How far would Kenny go? Some men don't mind destroying a life if they think they can profit from the ashes, and I'd lived long enough and seen enough to know when trouble was stretching its fingers toward my door. Around sunset, I heard a car pull up outside, the kind of engine rumble that didn't sound familiar. I wiped my hands and peeked through the curtain. A dark sedan, tinted windows, engine still running. A man stepped out, tall, hoodie pulled low, hands in his pockets. My spine stiffened. He walked up to the porch and knocked, slow, deliberate, like he wanted the sound to settle deep into the walls of my home. I stayed quiet. He knocked again, louder this time, so I stepped onto the porch with every ounce of calm I could gather. Can I help you? I asked. He studied me for a moment. You looking for Damon? Damon's not here right now. He tilted his head. You his aunt? I am. Well, he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Maybe you can pass along a message. I don't take messages from strangers, I replied. He chuckled. I ain't a stranger. Damon knows me. I kept my voice even. If he needs you, he'll call you. He licked his teeth like he was savoring the tension. Tell Damon Kenny's done waiting. He needs to show up tonight. No, he doesn't. For the first time, his smile dropped. You don't know what he owes. I stepped closer, not aggressively, but with a firmness that came from a lifetime of protecting what's mine. And you don't know what kind of woman I am. This house is safe ground. You bring trouble here, you'll meet your match. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then he stepped back. Just give him the message. He walked off the porch and climbed back into the car, the engine growling before the sedan pulled away. I stood there until the red of the tail lights disappeared down the street. The moment the quiet settled back over my yard, my knees softened, not from fear, but from the weight of what I now knew. This wasn't just Damon's past coming back. This was a storm, and it was heading straight for my door. I didn't tell Damon about Kenny showing up that same evening, not because I believed in hiding things from him, but because I knew how guilt worked on a young man's mind. He would have blamed himself for letting danger get too close, and guilt, when it sits too heavy on a person's chest, can make them run straight toward the trouble they should be avoiding. So I waited until morning, when the light was soft, and Damon looked like he at least had a little rest under his belt. He was buttering toast when I said, Damon, we need to talk. His hand froze, the knife hovering midair. About what? Kenny came by last night. His eyes widened. What? What did he say? Did he touch the house? Did he? Calm down, I said gently. He knocked, that's all, but he was looking for you. Damon put the knife down slowly, like he wasn't sure his hands was steady enough to hold anything. What did he want? He said you owe him, said he needs you tonight. I told him that wasn't happening. He pushed back from the table and stood up, pacing the kitchen. I told him I'm done. I told him I don't want to do that life no more. I know. He can't keep coming after me, he muttered. He can't. I walked over and rested a hand on his shoulder. Damon, listen to me. People like Kenny don't stop because you want them to. They stop when you take away their power over you. He stared at the floor. I don't know how to do that. You start by not going anywhere alone today. You stay near me, you don't answer your phone unless it's me, and you let me handle whatever comes next. He looked at me with a mix of fear and disbelief. Handle? Auntie, I don't want you getting caught up in this. I already am, I said. You live here. Where you go, trouble follows, and when trouble follows you, it meets me. He sank back into his chair, burying his face in his hands. I didn't mean for any of this to come here. I know you didn't, I said softly, but life ain't about avoiding every shadow. Sometimes it's about turning on the light. Around noon, Damon went out to the shed to work on something he said helped clear his mind. I stayed in the house and made myself busy cleaning, though my mind never stopped spinning. My phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. Tell Damon he has until tonight or we'll come back. K. I stared at it for a long while, the letter sitting heavy on the screen. There's something unsettling about a man who signs his threats instead of hiding behind anonymity. It's like he wants you to know exactly where the danger's coming from. I took a picture of the message, saved it, then deleted the notification from the lock screen. Damon didn't need that in his head right now. When he came back inside, he looked calmer, only on the surface, the way a quiet lake can hide the churn underneath. He'd been thinking, he said, maybe I should just go, settle it, tell him face to face that I'm not doing anything for him no more. Absolutely not, I said immediately. But Auntie, no. I folded my arms. That's exactly what he wants, for you to go alone, for you to meet him on his turf. Damon, you don't walk into a trap just because you're scared of being chased. He closed his eyes, like he was trying to swallow a whole mountain of fear. I hate this, he whispered. I hate being scared. I hate looking over my shoulder. I know, baby, but fear ain't a sign you're weak. It's a sign you're still fighting. He nodded, though his shoulders sagged. So what do? We stay together, we stay alert, and we make sure Kenny understands that you're not some stray he can herd around. He frowned about how we supposed to make him understand that. I hesitated before answering. I'm gonna talk to someone, I said finally. Somebody who knows how to handle men like Kenny. Somebody who might know what he really wants. He looked alarmed. Who? My lips pressed into a thin line. The police? He guessed. No, not yet. They can't do much with a threat that ain't been acted on. He swallowed. Then who? I turned and looked out the window, the yard, the street, the place where Kenny had stood just hours before. Somebody who's helped me before, I said quietly. Somebody who knows a few things about debts and danger. I didn't tell him the name. I didn't tell him the history. And I definitely didn't tell him the favor I might have to call in. I spent the rest of that day moving through the house like my shadow weighed more than my body. Damon tried to busy himself with chores, but I could tell he was listening for every car that passed, every creak in the floorboards, every vibration of his phone. By early evening, he finally asked, Auntie, who is it you plan on talking to? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I checked the locks on the doors, then sat down across from him at the kitchen table, the same place where so many truths in this house had come to light. His name is Malcolm, I said. I haven't spoken to him in years. Damon frowned. Who is he to you? I took a breath. Someone I knew back when I was your age. Someone who had connections. He wasn't proud of everything he used to do, but he always had a certain authority with the kind of men Kenny runs around with. Damon stared at me. Auntie, you mean he used to... Yes, I said, stopping him gently. But he's different now. Got a straight life, a clean one. Still, people remember who he used to be, and they listen when he speaks. Damon shook his head slowly. I don't want you getting mixed up with people like that again, not for me. I reached over and held his hand. I'm not getting mixed up with anyone. I'm asking for protection for my household. There's a difference. He didn't argue further. It was dark by the time I stepped out onto the porch to make the call. The night air felt heavy, warm, and thick enough to press against my skin. I dialed Malcolm's number, half wondering if it would even still be the same. He picked up on the second ring. "Ain't heard from you in a long time," he said, his voice deep, steady, familiar in a way that made old memories rustle. "I know," I replied. "I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't important." "What's wrong?" I told him, not everything, but enough for him to understand the seriousness, enough for him to hear the strain beneath my calm. When he finished, he exhaled slowly. "You say the boy's name is Kenny?" "Yes." "And he's been showing up at your house, threatening the kid?" "Yes." A beat of silence. "I know the type," Malcolm said, thinking he's big because he's got 2 or 3 scared boys behind him. "So what can you do?" I asked. "He can talk to him," Malcolm said. "Make sure he knows that if he's knocking on your door again, he won't like what comes after." Relief flickered in my chest, just a little. "When?" I asked. "Tonight," he replied. "But you keep that boy home, and you keep your lights on. People like Kenny don't push far when they feel watched." "Thank you, Malcolm." "You ain't got to thank me," he said softly. "You were there for me once. This is me paying it forward." When I returned inside, Damon searched my face for answers. "He's handling it," I told him. He nodded, but worry still sat on his shoulders like a weight he couldn't shrug off. We ate dinner quietly. I washed dishes, Damon dried them. The house felt tense, like it was holding its breath along with us. Then, close to midnight, a loud knock hit the front door. Damon froze. My heart skipped, but something in that knock felt different. Not threatening, not heavy, just firm. I opened the door. Malcolm stood on my porch, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face grown gentler since the last time I saw him. He tipped his head at me in greeting. "It's handled," he said simply. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "What happened?" "Kenny isn't as tough as he pretends to be," Malcolm replied. "I explained a few things to him. He won't be coming near this house again." "Just like that?" I asked suspiciously. "Men like him crumble quick when somebody shows up who actually understands the game." Malcolm paused. "He's done with the boy. That's all you need to know." Damon stepped up behind me, still tense. Malcolm looked at him for a long moment. "You got a good thing here," Malcolm said to him. "A good woman. Don't make choices that drag her into mess again. Understand?" "Yes, sir," Damon said softly. Malcolm nodded. Then he turned to me. "You call me if anything changes." "I will." He walked away into the night, confident, certain, unhurried, like a man who knew every shadow worked for him instead of against him. When I closed the door, Damon leaned against the wall and finally exhaled. "Auntie, thank you." I touched his cheek gently. "This is your home. Protecting you is part of protecting it." For the first time in days, he smiled, small but real. And I realized maybe the danger had shaken something loose in him, something he'd kept buried, something scared and small and hidden. Maybe now, with this behind us, we could finally start helping him grow. The next morning came quietly, like the house itself was grateful for the peace. Damon slept late, deeper than I'd seen him rest since he first stepped foot into my home. When he finally walked into the kitchen, stretching and rubbing his eyes, he looked younger somehow, lighter. "You look rested," I said, handing him a plate of eggs. He smiled shyly. "I feel safe," for the first time in a long while. That did something to me. a warm ache, almost like pride mixed with sorrow. Young people shouldn't have to feel surprised when peace comes, but I'd learned that life doesn't hand out safety equally, and healing often begins when someone finally has a soft place to land. We ate breakfast in comfortable silence, and when we finished, he said, "Auntie, I think I want to try something new today." "And what's that?" I asked. "I want to start looking for steady work, something real, something that'll help me build a life that doesn't have anything to do with who I used to be." I nodded slowly. I think that's a fine idea. But I also knew moving forward doesn't erase the past, it just shifts the weight. So I kept my eyes open, my instincts sharp, even as I encouraged him. Later that afternoon, I stepped out onto the porch with a cup of tea. The street was calm, the neighbors outside working in their gardens or walking their dogs. Everything felt normal again, beautifully, wonderfully normal. But in the back of my mind, a thought lingered. Did Malcolm's warning truly settle the matter, or did it just buy us time? I didn't like living in uncertainty, but life doesn't often give you neat endings tied up with a bow. Still, I reminded myself that storms don't last forever. Eventually, the clouds burn off and the sky remembers how to be blue. While I sat lost in thought, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number again, but this time the words were different. "Tell Damon good luck. We ain't done." My hands stiffened. A cold thread ran down my spine. No signature, no threat spelled out, just a promise, the kind that hides in the quiet before trouble returns. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then I deleted the message. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I needed time to think, time to plan, time to figure out whether to share this with Damon or keep it to myself until I knew more. That evening, Damon sat on the couch working on applications. He was humming, actually humming, and it tugged at my heart. He reminded me of a boy who finally believed he had a real shot at a future. I didn't want to be the one to dim that light, so I kept the message to myself for the moment. Instead, I sat beside him. "What kind of jobs are you thinking about?" He said, "Something hands-on, maybe warehouse, maybe landscaping. I like working with my body." "You always did," I said, thinking back to the first few weeks he stayed with me, helping around the house just to feel useful. "I just want to earn my own way," he said softly. "I want to be someone you can trust." I reached over and squeezed his hand. "Damon, trust isn't earned with perfection. It's earned with honesty, effort, and time, and you've been giving all three." His eyes softened. "I'm trying," he whispered. "I know, and I'm proud of you." But pride and fear can live in the same heart, and that night when I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the fear won. I reached for my phone and sent Malcolm a message. "Kenny's people sent another text. They said they're not done." He responded almost immediately. "Don't worry, I'll look into it, but keep the boy close and don't trust anyone new around him." I stared at those last words. Don't trust anyone new around him. The warning sat in my chest like a stone, because Damon had started talking about a new friend from back before he came to me, someone who followed him on social media, someone who'd been reaching out recently, someone who claimed he wanted to check in, and suddenly I wasn't sure if that person was innocent at all. The next days moved slowly, tense but steady, as if the whole world was holding its breath with us. Damon kept working on job applications, determined to build something real for himself. I kept the house running, eyes sharp for anything unusual. But every time a car slowed near the house, every time my phone buzzed, every time a shadow moved where it shouldn't have been, I felt that cold thread of fear pull tight. Still, life doesn't stop because danger lingers. We just move forward with caution stitched into our steps. On the third morning, Malcolm called. "I found out who sent that second message," he said. "It wasn't Kenny. It was someone trying to stir the pot, someone jealous that Kenny backed down so fast." My stomach tightened. Jealous? Yes. A younger guy, someone with more bark than bite. He thought he'd make a name for himself by stepping where he shouldn't. I closed my eyes. "Is he going to come here?" "No." Malcolm's voice was firm. "I made things clear. Damon is off limits, your home is off limits, and anyone who touches either will have me to answer to." My breath left my lungs in one slow exhale. "Thank you," I whispered. "You don't owe me thanks, but you do need to understand something. The boy's past won't disappear overnight. Some people see him trying to change and they don't like it. But the important part is this: he's got protection now, real protection." "I appreciate you, Malcolm." His voice softened. "Take care of yourself and keep taking care of that boy. He's got a good heart if he stays on the right road." When I hung up, I sat quietly on the edge of my bed. Relief washed over me slowly, cautious at first, then warm and full like sunlight forcing its way through a crowded sky. The danger wasn't magically gone, but it was managed, contained, controlled. For now, and sometimes for now is enough to start breathing again. That afternoon, Damon came running into the house, a wide grin stretching across his face. "Auntie!" He held up his phone. "I got a job interview. They want me to come in tomorrow morning." Joy rose in me so fast it almost hurt. "Oh, Damon!" I pulled him into a hug, feeling his shoulders shake with excitement and maybe a little disbelief. I told you good things were waiting for you on the other side of all this. I didn't think anyone would give me a chance." "You only need one person to believe in you," I said softly, "and sometimes that person shows up in a house like this one, at a table like ours, ready to help you start again." He nodded against my shoulder. For the first time in months, maybe years, the boy looked like he could actually see a future beyond the shadows that chased him. That night, I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the trees. The world felt calmer, steadier, almost tender. Damon was safe, the threats were handled, and my home, my quiet, steady, unshakable home, had done what it always did: be a place where healing could grow. As the first stars blinked awake in the sky, I whispered a small prayer, not for protection this time, but for gratitude, for strength, for the courage to stand between a child and the storm long enough for him to learn to stand for himself. Because every now and then, life asks you to open your door to someone who's barely holding on, and if you're lucky, truly lucky, you get to watch them rise. And Damon, he was rising, one step, one day, one chance at a time.